Facts patriarchists don't want you to know. Episode 2 Matriarchies naturally preceded patriarchies. Our ancient ancestors believed women fought a cosmic battle. Prior to 2400 BCE, when Egyptians discovered that males play a biological role in pregnancy, humanity believed that women were the creators, conjuring babies out of their own physical and spiritual powers to bring life from another realm to this realm. This cosmic battle is why women bled once a month, what we now call menstruation, a word that comes from the word for moon, demonstrating an ancient connection between women and the moon's phases, thus their sacred, spiritual connection to the cosmos. Notice the shapes of these icons. Isis is shaped like the human reproductive organs, a symbol echoed in Bucrania, misnamed because scholars want you to believe they are bull horns. The Alpha and Omega symbols, and even temple structures. Women were literally believed to be the Alpha, or originators for life in this realm, and Omega, another symbol of uterus and fallopian tubes, because it is their organs giving rebirth to the next life. In 1861, just as America was starting its Civil War, J.J. Bachofen, a Swiss anthropologist, which was also a new field of science at the time, wrote a book called Motherite, an investigation of the religious and judicial character of matriarchy in the ancient world. Immersed from a childhood steeply in ancient Greek and Roman language and cultures, his book identified 4 phases of human society: heterism, or communal living where everyone had sex with everyone they desired, hence the Greek word for prostitution; lunar matriarchies, wherein women's spiritual associations with the moon led them to form social houses with which men bonded themselves, the origin of the word husband, that led to using the moon to predict when to plant particular crops. Dionysian, where the female creator gods were replaced by male gods, such as Dionysus, as is spoken of in the Linear B tablets; and the Apollonian, wherein male solar gods transcend the importance of female moon gods, the perfect form of which enabled the so-called monotheism that allowed the Abrahamic religions to develop. Such radical thinking, placing women as primeval progenitors for everyone, was largely ignored until the mid 1900s, when Maria Gimbutas put forward her matriarchal ideas that were derided and, actually, laughed at when she presented them at professional conferences. But think about it. How old were you when you learned? Think about this carefully and honestly. If you grow up in a culture that has no idea that heterosexual coitus causes pregnancy, after all, there are 40 weeks between sex and birth, so no clear cause and effect, there is no one around to tell you that one thing causes the other. So, how old were you when you learned that a man has to stick his penis inside a woman's vagina to get her pregnant? Typically, people say, well, that child looks just like that guy. So, how did ancient humans rationalize the fact that so many babies look like their biological fathers? Because they believed all men had a spiritual effect on babies, and they believed that semen, which they had no idea had sperm in it because they had no microscopes, fed the babies. So many believed that babies would naturally look more like the men who fed them in the womb than they would other men. Plus, there's the fact that in ancient times, most communities were so small and so inbred that everyone pretty much looked like everyone else. Even today, many children have been shocked by DNA tests that reveal that the guy they believed was their biological father actually is not. So, when archaeologists talk about ancestor worship, they really mean mother worship, because women were the only blood relative anyone could trace their lineage through up until the Bronze Age of the Eastern Mediterranean. The oldest known family lineage that I know of is the Io line in Greece, a strong woman so idolized by her offspring that she became a god, forever remembered in myth. The false argument is often made that humanity learned about the connections between heterocoitus and pregnancy by observing the herd animals they domesticated. This argument is bad logic, because hunters also had observed annual breeding frenzies among the herd animals they eventually domesticated. So just domesticating the animals would have taught them nothing additional. I grew up on a farm. I know. The axe of rut in the autumn for most deer, sheep, and goats. The acts of chasing females in heat by stallions and bulls. None of these acts were unique between humans and animals, and all could be explained by the fact that, well, sex is great. Other sexual acts also happen among animals, including homosexual acts and self gratification. So there would have been no great leap of logic to humans who owned animals than there were among people who hunt them. While Bachofen was on the right track, by granting women primogeniture status, his logic defied the accepted patriarchal Abrahamic dogma, also known as the male myth, that is still believed around the world. In fact, Bachofen was very much a product of his time. He too believed males were superior to females, and that it was natural that male dominated religions and societies would replace female oriented ones. Like so many of his colleagues and of scholars since his time, the idea that a monotheistic religion, despite the fact that none actually exists, are superior to pantheistic ones, thus a natural evolution of human society. The fact that males only appear superior to women when women are not allowed access to education nor allowed strength and speed building exercise has long been ignored by patriarchists everywhere. This idea that males are superior is the biggest piece of social propaganda that has existed for the last 2,000 years. But it began within a half a millennia after Egyptians discovered procreation, that males actually play a physical role in pregnancy, and increased in frequency over the centuries before the creation of so called monotheistic religions, because patriarchies use two tools in order to suppress feminine power and oppress everyone who exhibits any form of it. One, lies, such as the male myth and the hero myth, first perpetuated in Homer's time, circa 750 BCE, thus proliferated by his epic poem, the Iliad. Number two, threats of violence. If the lies don't work, threaten those who dare to defy patriarchal power. Women who speak or act out are still stoned to death in some cultures today. Without these two tools working for them, patriarchies quickly fall by the wayside. So when women refuse to marry, or even if they marry, refuse to take their husband's surnames, refuse to give their children the father's surname, refuse to live near their husband's parents or bury their dead near his family, all patrilocal customs, patriarchies cease to be full on or even patriarchal heavy, and equality comes knocking. You see, patriarchies are fragile things. So patriarchists are running scared right now. That's why there are no more full on patriarchies in the world today, especially not since so many people around the world have learned about how equality works, wherein everyone is equal to everyone else. While equality is not fully accepted everywhere in the world, for example, any culture that still hosts royalty, which is the idea that some people are better than others because they are God ordained to be so, has not fully embraced equality. The idea that everyone is equal has reached almost every spot on the planet. The threat of equality to the males who dominate the economics of the world is so great that they willingly finance anyone who opposes anything at all feminine, from women's rights to trans women and drag queens. So they definitely do not want you to know that humanity's natural social structure is communal, therefore more egalitarian. Shite! That's communism, isn't it? Real communism is the idea that everyone is equal and that everyone is heard and matters. Realize that there are no real communistic communities anywhere that I'm aware of. All the ones called communist by the patriarchists are merely equality leaning. Of course, theories abound about why real communism is impossible, most having to do with human nature and our desire to hoard more for ourselves than to help others. Which is where the wealthy guys trying to buy elections and influence the state of our cultures come in. They are hoarders, and they don't care who is harmed in the making of their hoards. In ancient times, because communities were small, such men would be ostracized, cast out to fend for themselves for thinking of their own selfish selves rather than the good of the many. Now, they spend oodles of their ill gotten gain to influence elections and to spread patriarchal lies, such as the idea that still gets bounced around a lot that women are inferior human beings. Mature human beings know how to share because they know the world does not revolve around them. If the 2024 Olympics showed us anything, it's the fact that women can and do anything men can do. Whether it's wall climbing, boxing, weightlifting, training horses, gymnastics. And that scares the heebie jeebies out of patriarchists, too. How will they ever keep the male myth going? There is still so much more to tell you. The next episode is the primary male myth lie. In the meantime, be sure to read Ruth J. Heflin's Pitiless Bronze, a post patriarchal examination of pre patriarchal cultures. You will be amazed by what's to come. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share so everyone can learn the real truth.